Welcome to this presentation of Legal and Ethical, our group project for our Laws and Ethics class at JSU. I am Caroline Meadows, and my partner for this project is Kyle Kilgore. He is a math teacher at Auburn High School. He is presenting elsewhere today. So we're going to go over 4 different topics, and as you are all veteran teachers, you probably have either dealt with this before already or have experienced it at some point in your education career. And we're going to talk about the rights of students with disabilities under the laws like IDEA, search and seizure in schools, and the students and their rights dealing with when or if you ever or an admin ever has to do a search on them. Teacher licensure and tenure, highlighting requirements for a teacher and your protections, and then teacher privacy, including personal and ethical boundaries. And then all these topics emphasize the legal responsibilities and ethical standards that we as educators are expected to uphold. Rights of individuals with disabilities. According to the United States Supreme Court, students with disabilities are individuals who have been formally identified as having a physical, mental, emotional, or a learning impairment that limits one or more major life activities, and they require services under the IDEA. In the Board of Education versus Rowley case of 1982, the United States Supreme Court clarified the definition and educational rights of students with disabilities. The court ruled that schools must provide services that allow students to participate in their free appropriate public education. More rights. So students with disabilities have the right to a free appropriate public education. They are entitled to an education just like students who do not have a disability. They are least restrictive environment. They must be educated with other non-disabled peers as much as possible. Some students' least restrictive environment is in that general education classroom, and then some of them are not. All students who are served under special education services have an IEP, which is a legal document that outlines their learning needs, goals, and their services. Parents' rights and involvement of students with disabilities. They have the right to participate in all decision-making that deals with their child and their learning environment, and they have access to all of the child's records for their education needs. Confidentiality in students with disabilities and their rights is a really big thing, especially right now. So confidentiality in special education is governed by FERPA and IDEA. It protects their records like their IEPs, their disability status, their evaluations. Information that is shared about students with disabilities needs to only be shared with those who have a legitimate interest in their educational journey, or if they have a student in their class. Parents have the right to access and request records at any time. The FERPA and IDEA ensure student privacy, trust, and legally we need to be compliant when we share student records with special needs. In this case, Gonzaga University versus the Department of Education, this student, he found out that while he was trying to get a job, that the university shared his special education records. And so he tried to sue the university. He was trying to get a job, and the university told where he was trying to get a job about his special needs. And so he tried to sue the university privately, but parents, or FERPA protects student privacy, so they all the lawsuits have to be filed under a federal complaint. They cannot be filed as a federal lawsuit. So he did end up losing that case. If he had filed through not a private lawsuit, he probably would have won, but the court upheld that they cannot be filed privately. Our next part is search and seizure. So students are protected under the 4th Amendment from unreasonable search and seizure even while they are at school. They have a reasonable expectation of a right to privacy and their personal belongings, such as their backpacks, their lockers. Legal standard, if your admin or if you as a teacher has reasonable suspicion, the Supreme Court ruled that schools can conduct a search without a warrant if there's a reasonable suspicion. So if you had a student one day who you were you had suspicious thinkings about that they had a weapon then our administrator could perform a search and seizure. Scope and justification, searches must be justified at the start and appropriate in their scope, meaning that they should relate directly to the suspected violation, and consider the student's age and situation. So we're not gonna have a woman teacher search a little boy probably. We would probably have a PE teacher, or in this case our administrator is a man, so we would have the man do it, and versus if you had a little girl, you would do it multiple probably. Teacher privacy and legal protection. So we are, as teachers, we are protected under the First Amendment right, and we do have our rights to freedom of speech and privacy, but we are also, we have to uphold certain standards because we are teachers. So we have a right to privacy in our personal life unless the actions disrupt the school environment or impact anybody else's ability to perform. Direct social media and public speech. Courts have upheld discipline when teachers' online behavior undermines trust, the professionalism, or contradicts school values. So as teachers, we have a higher standard, and we have to protect ourselves by making sure that our social media presence and the way we talk in public is appropriate. Dress and appearance. Our schools and our school district can regulate the attire that we wear to maintain a professional environment if it relates to legitimate educational concerns. And then FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, that protects student privacy but also sets boundaries on what we can discuss as teachers. Ethical boundaries in teacher privacy, professional conduct. We must model ethical behavior even off campus, like at ball games or field trips, as we are viewed as role models by students and everyone in the community. Personal versus professional life, private life of ours, of course, is respected, but if we decide to go out and make choices that conflict with our school values or affecting the way we teach, that may warrant some discussion. Being cautious on social media, avoid posting controversial, inappropriate, or political content that may affect student trust or the integrity of our school system. Avoiding dual relationships. We have to have boundaries with our students, clear boundaries with our students and families to avoid conflicts of interest, especially when you're at that high school level. You do not want your students thinking you are their friend. Confidentiality, respect both student and colleague privacy, avoid gossip, oversharing. We have to be very mindful of that in our day and age of technology. Everything can be screenshotted and everything can be recorded. Teacher license and tenure. In the state of Alabama, all teachers are required to be certified through the Alabama State Department of Education. Teachers must hold at least a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution and pass the praxis score and the subject assessments. You have to have a background check to make sure that you are not a conflict of interest. Class level, Alabama does a tier system. Class B is bachelor's degree, Class A is master's degree. Class AA is a specialist, and these all impact salary and advancement. Renewal and professional development. Certificates must be renewed every 5 years with requirements that include continuing education or college coursework, depending on what certificate you are renewing. Tenure eligibility in Alabama, you earn your tenure after 3 consecutive years or 36 months of full employment in the same school system. The Fair Dismissal Act, tenured teachers are protected under the Alabama Student First Act, ensuring a due process before you can be terminated or suspended. Due process rights, a tenured teacher must receive written notice of charges and a hearing before a hearing officer, and has the right to legal representation before anything happens on non-tenured status. Teachers without tenure can be non-renewed without cause, but they must be notified before the last day of the school year with students in the building. Job security and accountability. While tenure does provide job protection, unsatisfactory performance or misconduct can still lead to dismissal following a due process hearing. These are our references that the court court cases and things that were referenced in the presentation. Before you leave today, I have a one-pager that will be at the door before you leave today. If you want to pick that up, that's just a cheat sheet of things that you can look at to remember this presentation. Thank you all so much for being here today. I hope you learned something new, or if it's something that you've already dealt with, maybe this was just a refresher.